episode of the Fantasy 4-Pack Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined by my good friends, Matthew Vitale and Frankie Santiago. Forgot your name there for a second. How you guys doing today?
Doing good, but you got 250.
Yeah, I know. So, we can't dispense with pleasantries. We're not savages here.
240.
But we are on a little bit of a clock for the intro, so I will speed it along. Today we are going to be bringing some best ball content to you guys. We are actually in a Yahoo $5 best ball draft. Low stakes because no one's queuing for the big ones right now for the most part. But the whole point of this is we're going to try and give you guys our thoughts on some best ball values, be the good values or bad values, and hopefully help people who are getting into those early best ball leagues, which I really think is a key thing to do with best ball, especially if you want to really dig into the format, is to best ball draft from May and June all the way up to the start of the NFL season, because then you get to take advantage of some players that may be misvalued and really make some gambles that could pay off in the long run for helping you reach that top prize. I know I actually won a lot of money last year because I started in May and June.
Yeah, I definitely believe that there's some merit to starting early. There's a lot of guys who post-draft, they got some hype and people are overdrafting, and then conversely, there's some guys who right before the season kicks off, maybe there's some training camp reports, unfortunate injuries in the preseason, things that really rocket guys up board, and you can get them at a steal or pass on that way too high ADP that you're going to have to pay now to get a guy. But, with that said, I like this. Gives people, if you're considering getting into the best ball game, this can kind of show you how it all works and give people a good idea of where people are going and kind of show people that aren't used to best ball the differences between that and the redraft.
And like I said, we are doing this in Yahoo right now. As of today, May 23rd, unfortunately, the site that we all used last year, Draft, got bought out by FanDuel and is gone, and FanDuel didn't give us best ball drafts. They may. It's supposedly still in the plans for them, but they don't exist yet. Yahoo is where I find you get the most traffic currently for best ball.
Yeah.
So it's easier to get into leagues on Yahoo, but there are a couple other sites as well. Drafters is a good one. But Yahoo's probably the most established and has the most foot traffic. Real quick, we have 24 seconds. Let's go around the horn and say where we're picking. I'm picking at 2.
I'm at 8.
And I'm at 5.
Okay, and we'll be giving you our thoughts on our draft picks as well as other people's draft picks, depending on how much explaining we do on our own picks. I'll start talking about mine now because I expect Christian McCaffrey to go first. And if he does go first, as I expect, I'll be taking Saquon at 2.
That's unpleasant.
Oh, there you go. McCaffrey had 1.
So I'm going to go ahead and lock Saquon in here, and I think that's a really easy pick. I think Saquon at 2 is an absolute no-brainer. I honestly like Saquon as my 1-1 this year. He's in a unique situation where Danny Dimes should be taking a step forward in his career. He should be...
Well, let's swing it over because Frankie's on the clock right now. You got 20 seconds. What are you looking at, Frankie?
I am going to pick Dalvin Cook because of
I like that.
About last week, the volume he's going to get. He's not really battling for any touches. Not really in committee.
No, I mean at 5, Dalvin is a rock solid pick. I've talked to Vitale about this off the podcast. He is my third back off the board. If you can't get McCaffrey or Saquon, you lock Dalvin just because of that guaranteed volume.
Yeah, so this is also another strategy I like. I'm on the clock right now. I'm not a huge, as we've talked in our previous episode, that I'm not a huge Derrick Henry guy, but I'm going to go ahead and take him here just to try and play counter to what my own thoughts are sometimes, which is, I think, a great best ball strategy. Don't pigeonhole yourself to a certain play style. Try and span out and get some ownership of different players. But overall, at the end of the day, he's going to get carries. If the Titans progress or even repeat what they did last year, he's going to be a stud.
He's another guaranteed volume guy, which is huge, and a big part of best ball that it plays a little bit differently, obviously, than your standard 10, 12-man redraft league, because you don't have to worry about setting your optimal lineup on a week-to-week basis. because of that, it really behooves you to go heavy running back off the bat. Lock in those 2 to 3, elite guys, or at least top of the order guys, to really secure that on your team, so you always have them turning in performances. And then, because you can always fill in wide receiver performances on the back end of the draft, you can find guys who are going to score you points. And more often than not, they'll be serviceable. It's a lot harder to find running backs deeper into the draft.
Yeah, that's honestly, from just a few drafts that I've done recently, I've noticed that trying to get these guys at the top, your DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, who I'm looking at right now, but when I jump over, I see that the running back position, it dries up, and it dries up fast. So I'm actually going to reach here because I know I'm not going to be able to get him. I'm going to go take Austin Eckler. Because I want to get 2 guys who I think are going to get plenty of work throughout the season, and I think there's enough value in those later rounds, especially with Yahoo.
So let me ask you this, because Eckler is someone we haven't really talked about so far. Why Eckler? Why Eckler over a Josh Jacobs, for example, or Miles Sanders?
Who I'm about to draft, by the way, but I'm going to let you
go ahead.
Talk about yours.
So since you're taking him, that helps here. I went Eckler over Jacobs just because we know that Josh Jacobs is going to get the carries on the ground. He's last year, the big question with him was, is he going to get the passing down work? They kept Jalen Richard. They drafted a wide receiver who they then moved to running back. There's just a lot of signs pointing to that offense is going to use him like they did last year. He's going to be heavy carries, not a lot of passing work, but so I'll go with the guy who's got the multi-versatile tool set, Eckler, and try and diversify. So I have a pass-catching back. I've got a guy who's going to get heavy carries. I think Eckler, he showed last year, he's got that upside, and that's what you want in best ball.
I ended up taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think Frankie taking Jacobs where he did made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire at 19 because I needed a second running back. I love his position in Kansas City. And I think 19 is a little early for him. I kind of hope he sinks more towards the back of the third in redraft leagues. But when Sanders and Drake and Eckler and Jacobs are all off the board already, he's my next guy. So I'm going to go a little unconventional here, and I am going to take my first wide receiver at 22. I don't like it because I want running backs there, but there isn't another running back really worth grabbing for a long time after that. And with Kenny Golladay still on the board, I can't pass up that volume or that value.
Yeah,
Kenny Golladay is someone who's being, I think, incredibly undervalued in drafts, in best ball drafts across the board right now, based on what he did last season. Wide receiver 6. Wide receiver 6, and he is being taken in the back of the second, beginning of the third. That's a steal and a half.
Yeah.
Frankie, who are you taking?
Well, so just like you, I'm going to go unconventional. You saying that, I mean, I agree with you. There's not a lot of running backs that are like in this area that I want to take. But instead of taking a wide receiver, I'm going to take my tight end, because you guys know how I feel about tight ends. I value them as another wide receiver, and I think having that extra wide receiver with the air quotes around it is, to me anyways, it's important when I'm building my roster. That's why in redraft I also do the same thing. That's to your own personal preference. Like I said, it's unconventional, but that's just how I
personally don't agree with taking tight ends early in best ball, but that's mostly because so similar to wide receiver, you can mix and match and find 3 tight ends, and likely one of them is going to be a good matchup on a week-in, week-out basis. Vitale is now on the clock, 14 seconds left. Who are you looking at here?
So, for me, this is just he's a guy that I've liked for a long time. I'm going to go and lock him in right now, Juju Smith-Schuster. He is a guy, like I said, 1,400 yards that last season when they had Antonio Brown. He had a down season because of Big Ben being gone, and the elbow injury, that's not something that... It's something to worry about with Big Ben's advanced age, but it's not something that is a nagging injury. I just think I'm clocking them in for some regression back to their old ways. And I think if you have a competent quarterback with Juju Smith-Schuster, you're going to get top numbers. We were talking about this kid as a potential first-round talent, and we were all ready for that breakout last year. That's why he was in the mid-second rounds. Getting him at the back of the third, I'm ready for that because I think he's a very boom or bust guy, which is what I like when I'm going best ball.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Juju really just comes down to how do you think the Steelers are going to do this year? If you think the Steelers are going to return to the norm for them and return to just churning out fantasy superstars, then Juju's a steal and a half. If you think that last year was sort of the harbinger for what the Steelers are going to bring to the table from here on out, Juju's way overpriced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so back on the board here, I'm going to go another wide receiver, another guy that I'm actually very comfortable with taking this year, DJ Moore. I'm going to lock him in because I think...
And what about that Q tag?
No, I'm not worried about that questionable tag in this point in the year, but with him, it's just... I think that offense is just going to keep getting better now that they're not having turnover at quarterback. Like Cam Newton, he's great, and he performed... DJ was able to perform with him, but I just think having a standard guy, Teddy Bridgewater.
Let's pause for a second on the thoughts about DJ Moore, because I want to touch on this real fast. Jonathan Taylor at 35 is way too early.
Way too early.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an overpay for him.
He's a backup running back until someone says otherwise.
Well, because let's mention, like, some of the running backs that are going around Jonathan Taylor at 35 in best ball right now. Le'Veon Bell, Chris Carson, Leonard Fournette, Mark Ingram, Raheem Mostert. There's just so much running back talent around him that it has a more locked-in path to the carries.
You're up. I just want to jump on something. You just took Amari Cooper
at
the 36th pick. Do you, as the resident Cowboy homer, and with everything that's going on with Dak, are you not worried about the offense and the passing game specifically for them?
For me, I'm not super worried about the passing game. They're clearly looking to be a pass-heavy team. They're looking to be looking to run a lot of plays in general. That's at least how I view the whole situation. And someone's going to be getting the deep ball, whether it's Cooper, as we saw last year, who is their main pass catcher. Obviously, Gallup's developing in their new draft class. I think that he's still a solid pick, even with the whole Dak controversy, which I think will get sorted out, hopefully, for me. But in terms of fantasy, I think Cooper's still a solid play. He's going to have those boom weeks. He's going to get covered by teams' number one corners. But, his boom is going to probably outweigh his bust.
So we just saw, I took Cooper Kupp at 39, just because I have the two, so I have the wraparound, or almost a wraparound. I couldn't really pass up the value of Cooper Kupp. I really like pairing him with Kenny Golladay, where they're two touchdown-dependent guys, but they also get a lot of... They're not touchdown-dependent, but they farm touchdowns. They're both guys who are the primary receiving option in their respective offenses. Came back around at 42. I wanted David Johnson there. David Johnson went at 41, so I took Raheem Mostert. Really like what I saw out of him in San Francisco last year. I really like they got rid of Matt Breida. I expect him to take a step forward. I love where he's going. They're a team that wants to run. And you're getting him, in the same range as some aging running backs or running backs who don't necessarily have the full faith of their team.
Yeah.
Frank, are you looking at 45 here?
I'm having a bit of an issue here because I want to grab another running back, but I don't really trust Mark Ingram.
And you're looking at...
I would take Le'Veon Bell here. I think you're at the point in the draft where you have to consider taking Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, and that's probably what I'm going to do, just because I need a third back. And, as much as I hate taking a Jet, because I think that team is...
If there's any Jet who's going to have a path to success, it's Bell.
Yeah, he's always been kind of that guy.
He's been a superstar, fantasy superstar in the past. They haven't gotten rid of him yet, so they have to use him somewhat at least. Assuming that Jets offense can take any sort of step forward, Bell should have a regression to the norm and turn out a better fantasy season.
Yeah. Here, I would typically usually go with Adam Thielen. It's crazy to see how far down he's slipped. They have him, his ADP 36, and we're at pick 48. I'm actually going to fade him. I'm going to go for Leonard Fournette there. Just because, like I said, it's the theme, and you guys talking about, take Le'Veon Bell now, and you see everyone else scooping running backs out as fast as they can. These wide receivers falling down the board. So that's why trying to get two running backs as soon as you can to anchor your team.
Well, and let's touch on that too, because that is the other reason that you want to go running back heavy in best ball, where you might not in a regular league, because a lot of other people have that mindset as well, and it's not good to try and zig where everyone else is zagging in this case, because if you zig where everyone else is zagging, you're going to find yourself with 4 wide receivers going into your 5th pick, and your best running back is going to be someone like David Montgomery.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things where it's crazy to see some of these wide receivers and where you can get them. And look at that. I like Thielen. I left him alone, and look at that, Dave Montgomery. Kyler Murray.
Yeah, 2 quarterbacks went off the board.
All these other guys went Adam Thielen, like I said, who they have in the 30s, is now available to me at 53. I'll lock him in now.
Yeah, that's insane value.
Like,
there comes a point too where when you get a value like that, the number one guy in the system, they don't throw a lot, but the passes that they are going to throw, a lot of them are going his way.
Yeah,
He's a target hog.
Yeah, Diggs is out of town now.
You almost can't pass on that value at that point. You're insane if you do.
Exactly.
And I mean, here, I'm going to go another wide receiver. Just another guy I like, DK Metcalf.
Ooh, decaf Metcalf.
Okay.
I think he's slowly becoming that guy in Seattle.
My favorite uncaffeinated
saw the
beverage.
volume last year, had the yardage to match it. I think it's just a solid pick.
No, I love DK Metcalf.
I was gonna go Devontae Parker as well because I also like him, but I weighed the two options. Better offense.
I am going to actually do what you just said,
Well, then I will let you reason for it.
and I am going to take Devontae Parker because I am a big Devontae Parker. I've been waiting for years for this guy to break out. I swear, I've owned him every year. And every year it's like, this is the year he's going to break out, and then he just does nothing on my bench, and I have to drop him and be sad. And then finally, last year, he just came out, he smashed, he showed that he can be a real force in the league. I love his beef that he had with
Michael Thomas.
as well,
Yeah.
too. That was hilarious. I am not scared of the quarterback situation in Miami. I think that Devontae Parker is a good enough player, and Brian Flores is a good enough coach that they will figure out how to make him work in that offense regardless of who's quarterback. Obviously, I hope it's the Amish Rifle because he makes good fantasy wide receivers even if he's not a great quarterback himself.
Yeah.
But I'm happy owning him, whether it's him, Tua, some rando.
And that's the other thing with
And
these
then-
ones. They move a little fast as you just kind of...
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at taking a tight end there anyway.
I know you like the Walrus. But
Yeah, I mean, Waller is someone who I might not have naturally taken him there,
right.
but I'm fine with that pick because he's gonna get less volume than he did last year, just given the fact that he was the only one last year. But I can sub in some cheaper tight ends there to back him up, and even if he doesn't have all boom weeks. When he doesn't have boom weeks, hopefully someone like Jonnu Smith or Blake Jarwin can come in and prop that position up.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to jump on when Frankie took George Kittle. That's one way to go, is try and grab one of those elite guys who's going to be basically a positional advantage for you every week over anyone else who has to use these, the cycling door. But for me, when it comes to best ball, because they just auto slot in the best tight end, you don't have to play the guessing game. I like to just grab a whole bunch of late round guys on better teams where they have a higher percentage chance of getting a touchdown, and then you just hope one of them turns in that one touchdown 40-yard game and is just one of the better tight ends to own that week.
So let's talk about that for a second. I want to go around the table and get you guys' thoughts on this before we go back to talking about the picks that are coming off the board. Positional limits. What do you guys usually take as far as depth at a position in best ball? Because obviously best ball, there's no trading, there's no add drop period. It's just whatever you draft at the start of the season, that is your team until the end of the season. I know I personally typically go 2 tight ends if I grab someone like a Kelsey or a Kittle.
I agree with that. That's how I work.
And then I go 3 if I don't get one of those elite guys. Running back, I'll usually go right up to the max, so 6. And I'll usually go either, treat quarterback like tight end, where I'll grab 2 if I grab an elite, or 3 if I'm just, shooting into a net hoping something lands,
Yeah.
Wide receiver, I just kind of fill as I go because, like I said, I just grab a handful of them and just throw them in a wall, see what sticks. What do you guys typically do for your strategies?
Like I said, with tight end, I treat it where I honestly favor I go 4 tight end, and I just go late. Like I said, I grab guys who have like that. You're going to pick them up at the end of your redraft, like a Kyle Rudolph, a Tyler Eifert, those kinds of guys who I just think have some skill. Maybe they can pop, but I know they're good for a couple of touchdowns throughout the season, and that's all I need is, best ball will just plug in the guy that got the touchdown that week, and hopefully I keep getting touchdowns every week.
You're up by Tyler, by the way.
I am. So here, it's like I said, it's just one of those things where you're looking at a lot of just...
I honestly like Matty Ice here.
I was looking at him...
I think this is it's a little early ADP-wise. but only a pick or two. And I'm personally high on Matty Ice's prospects this season. I would lock him in here as long as you have the rest of your starting positions filled already.
Right. So I had my guy ready. I completely agree, and Matty Ice has been a common pick for me. I went with Jared Cook, who I think is like that, could break out and show something. I like him being, once again, he's on the Saints.
Well, he was a very effective tight end.
Exactly. He just was in a limited fashion, and I think if, he's a perfect best ball, he's got great upside, but he's got a low floor. So he's that kind of guy who I can hope is going to take up those touchdowns most of the week, but then I'll just plug in some, random guys throughout the week and for my squad just to hopefully get those touchdowns when he doesn't.
Frankie, who are you picking?
I'm going to go with your suggestion for Vitality because
Taking Matty Ice?
I am going with Matty Ice.
I like it.
Mainly because he was off to a hot start last year. Then the Falcons kind of just imploded, had a lot of injuries.
Well, and Matty Ice does have the every other year syndrome where he metronomes good year, bad year, good year, bad year. This is good year.
Well, last year was a bad year, and it was supposed to be a good year.
Nope, actually last year was supposed to be a bad year.
Well,
He was excellent in 2018.
Yeah, he's near MVP, and then he's bottom of the barrel. Then back up to the top 3, and
So I'm going to take someone who I think, to piggyback off of an earlier comment I made, someone who I think is a fantastic value in the 8th round. Marlon Mack is being just so slept on in best ball drafts and by the fantasy community as a whole. Everyone's treating it like because the Colts drafted a running back in the 2nd round that Marlon Mack doesn't exist anymore. He's still got a year left on that contract. He's going to play. He's probably going to start. To not take Marlon Mack is certifiable. Because, what are you doing, ignoring a guy who could easily be the starter all season? He could very easily hold that job down all year because the Colts want to just give Jonathan Taylor a year to sort of learn the offense, rest his legs from college because he did have a lot of carries in college, and just run Marlon Mack into the ground because you don't care. You're not signing him next year. Wash your hands of him, put 400 carries into the guy, and release him into the wild.
yeah, that's exactly how I feel about him.
And you can get him in the 8th round. There's a chance of you getting a 250 carry back in the 8th round. That's insane.
Insane.
And I'm going to go with unconventional pick for me here. Typically, I avoid New England backs, but I'm going to go ahead and draft Sonny Michel.
Oh, boo!
My reasoning for that is, it's.
Did you had a stroke at the table?
No, it's because we don't know where we're going to go with Stid. And, if he sucks, well, then someone's
and you wasted an 8th round pick on him.
Someone's going to have to,
Damian Williams. Or Damian Harris, excuse me. Damian Harris is going to be the guy, and you can get him with literally your last pick in best ball.
All right, here is where I'm a little torn. I like Deebo Samuel. He really showed last year.
Deebo's good value here, too.
He is good value. It's just I already started to load up. I want to grab some quarterbacks. And you know what? There's just something nice about having Drew Brees there. He's going to have his down games. He's going to have his month games, but he's still Drew Brees.
I think this is last year.
Yeah.
I think this is Brees' swan song year.
I'm fine because I know he's going for a ring, so I'm ready to buy in on the Saints as a whole.
It's such a good offense too. Brees is going to have those down weeks, but you're drafting Brees in best ball for the massive weeks, the weeks where he throws four touchdowns.
Exactly. When he has those flashes back to old Brees, and I'm just going to support him. I'm going to go grab him. I'm going to go grab some of those quarterbacks that you're going to get very late. Jerry Goff, if you believe in him, Danny Dimes, you get Jimmy Garoppolo if you can get handoff points.
Frankie, speaking of quarterbacks, with you being our NFC guy in the call, Carson Wentz going at 90 with quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, Teddy Bridgewater, guys that are probably going to at least play a full season. What do you think about Wentz going where he went?
I just think that's, in my opinion, that's a poor pick. Just because I personally don't trust Wentz playing a full season. He's never shown that he can do it.
Guys are still on the board: Brady, Burrow, Bridgewater, Carr, Drew Lock, Matt Stafford, Ben Roethlisberger. There's a lot. Darnold's still on the board. There's a lot of guys that I would take over Wentz. I guess best ball, you don't have to worry as much, but
Right. But then it's
I
just
find
like,
the Wentz pick. I don't like Wentz at all.
that could be a pick you're just throwing in the bin after a couple of weeks.
Sure, I guess if you're drafting deep at quarterback, Wentz doesn't really matter.
Right. I wanted to get your opinions. How do you guys feel about first year quarterbacks?
So I guess I ran out of time and it drafted me a defense.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to take a defense here, so this is about the range where I start because I do like to lock in one defense that I think is going to be a potential high-end defense, so like a San Francisco, a New England, a Pittsburgh.
Well, that's who I like.
I like to lock one of those
coincidentally.
in. Like I just took Pittsburgh because not a lot of parts of their defense changed. They should come back and turn in another at least top 10 season, which is really what I'm looking for in this. And I'm just going to find another defense to supplement them. I'm only going to take two.
right. Yeah.
But I do like to lock in one of those top defenses near the 10th round to make sure that I have that base at the position that's just I don't have to worry about them getting negative points because they're going to go out there and they're going to perform. My next pick here, let's see.
5 seconds.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb here. I really, even with all the drama going on in that Dallas offense, I like Lamb. I don't think he's a lock for targets. I think he could easily end up being 5th in targets on that team behind even Blake Jarwin because he is the rookie, and rookie wide receivers take some time to get into their role. But I like that Mike McCarthy consistently, year in, year out, over the course of his career, has had a top 10 offense when he's running 3 wide receiver sets. He's very efficient with running those 3 wide receiver sets, and I don't have a lot of issue with taking him in the 11th round.
I'm going to go ahead and take Brandon Cooks there.
That's great value.
I believe that, I initially didn't have Deshaun Watson in my even top 10 for the year, but getting a weapon like Cooks, I think definitely brings his value up.
The big issue with Cooks is his brain oatmeal yet? If you think he's going to stay on the field, at the range that you're taking him, it doesn't really matter. But if Cooks is still a very young receiver, he's 26, and he's still very talented. If you get his full season out of Cooks as the number 1 in Deshaun Watson's offense, you potentially got a top 15 wide receiver in the 11th round.
So
that's great value, Frankie.
yeah, I'm just like I said with this one, I'm trying out some different strategies. And I think that's another key best ball. I went with Brady here. I'm just gonna decide I'm gonna buy in on the hype train, and I think that offense has enough that can carry. Brady just needs to get the ball out there, and I think he has enough playmakers that they can extend plays. I could see Goodwin being a guy that catches a 10-yard slant and takes it to the house and just gets Brady those free points, even though he didn't throw a deep bomb. So it's worth those guys. Those high upside guys are always worth taking, especially in the late rounds, because you're just shooting for the moon with them and hoping you hit on a couple.
It's weird to think that Brady is a high upside guy. I don't necessarily agree that he's a high upside guy. I think his ceiling is fairly limited.
Even with all those weapons.
I don't think Brady has enough left in the tank to use all of those weapons.
Okay.
That's the issue. We've seen Brady become progressively worse at throwing the deep ball every year for the last. It feels like Brady's been playing my entire adult life. Actually, it's because he has.
Yeah,
Your adult life, yes.
he's 42, right?
Yeah. I thought for a second. I was like, oh shit, he got drafted in '99. Yeah, he has been playing my entire adult life.
Yeah.
I don't think Brady can use Mike Evans and O.J. Howard like we need them to be used to be these top guys. Godwin should have a great season. Brady loves to hammer the slot. O.J. Howard even could have a good year because Ronald Jones can't catch anything. But I don't believe in that offense as a whole. I don't know who exactly it is. I believe it's going to be Evans.
I think
one of those two receivers is going to be a massive trap card this year.
Mm-hmm.
And right there, I just took my guy.
No, fantastic, huh?
I think he's going to have a great year.
I like it.
As much as I like to say the Denver offense is being built a little bit too quick, I think they're trying to do too much too quickly. I like the pairing with him and Drew Lock. I think they're going to be a great tandem in the NFL this year. He had a pretty good year last year. not great, but
So I'm going to go ahead and take someone that I was considering taking at my last pick. I waited on him, and he happened to still be here at 119. I'm going to take Joe Burrow. While I think that someone like Stafford offers more consistent value here, I already have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. So I already have my Mr. Consistent guy. Rodgers is going to go out there and at least give me 12 points a week. I'm sort of shooting for the moon with Burrow, where if Burrow is what everyone says he is, Burrow could end up being a league winner for me here, where, if I don't have to start him every week.
You have 5 seconds.
I don't know.
Make sure. Don't want you missing another pick.
I'm going to take Sterling Shepard here. I like his position in that offense, and I did need another wide receiver. I've probably sat on wide receivers for a while now, but I believe that Danny Dimes is going to take a step forward this year. A big part of him taking a step forward is that his receivers have to take a step forward with him. I don't think Shepard's a 1, but I think the value that you're getting for Shepard at 122 is good enough that he's worth using a pick on, because he's a guy who should have a consistent floor and he could have some boom weeks.
And here I'm going to take my second quarterback, Mr. Kirk Cousins. That offense was playing really well last year. I mean, they're obviously a run-heavy team with a running back like Dalvin. But they signed Kirk to play ball, and I think he's going to do just that this year. I mean,
you're right. He has consistently shown us over the course of his career that he plays ball specifically against bad teams and then poops the bed against good teams.
Yeah. For my pick right here, it's somebody that he's not typically my kind of best ball guy. He is a hyper floor guy.
Yeah.
Jamison Crowder. He's one of the only guys I can think of that can get 120 targets and still not break 1,000 yards. It's a real talent.
Oh, yeah.
But like I said, he's going to get you in PPR formats for redraft. He's a guy you want to just target late. You stick him in your flex when you're unsure. He's going to catch 5 or 6 balls and pull in 60 yards. Maybe he gets a touchdown.
So something I want to talk about based on the guy who just went off the board at 130, Alexander Madison. What are your thoughts on taking handcuffs in best ball?
Nope.
He was actually going to be my next pick if he was still there. Having Dalvin, I think it's important to have at least one handcuff. Not even necessarily for the running backs that you have, but just as those guys who could step in and become a starter if someone else gets injured, whether it be your guy or not.
I agree. Partially. I will take handcuffs if I have either an elite handcuff like a Kareem Hunt, or an Alexander Madison, whether I have the starting back or not. If I have the starting back, I am more likely to take that handcuff, though. I'm
actually the reverse. I don't think it's not bad to take a handcuff, especially better ones. Kareem Hunt, Alexander Madison, they have talent. If they get this, if the lead back goes down for any reason, you can slot them in for being a quality start, and you're gonna get a lot of plays at them. My thing is this: in best ball, because this is all or kind of nothing, you want to shoot for the moon with your teams. If I take Dalvin Cook, I'm not taking Alexander Madison, because if I lose Dalvin Cook, I'm probably not winning anyways. And then conversely, if I take Zeke, I'm going to try and hunt out and try and take other people's handcuffs, because then if I have Zeke and I have Alexander Madison starting, I think that's a league winner right there.
Zeke, I think, is different there, because as good as Tony Pollard is, Zeke hasn't shown a history of injuries.
Right.
Where someone like Dalvin, where they have shown a history of injuries, and Alexander Madison is a very capable back in his own right, I think it's smart to take someone like him. So I'm up on the clock right now. I know I said I don't need more wide receivers, but I just love this guy where I am. I'm going to take Deshaun Jackson. See, speaking of ceiling plays, Deshaun Jackson is someone you never want to start ever in redraft, because you start him the weeks that he gets 4 yards on 1 catch, and he's on your bench when he gets 38 fantasy points. He scores 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's all. I don't have to worry about that. When he goes off, he's in my lineup. When he's not going off or hurt, he's just sitting there, just collecting dust on my bench. Whatever.
Yeah.
He is a perfect best ball pick.
Yeah. But just my last comment on the whole backup thing is that it's less that I think, like Tony Pollard, he's a whatever backup. I wouldn't bother drafting him in best ball. My thing is this: if I just pick Zeke as just another top guy. If I have my top running back and then I steal your top running back's elite handcuff and I have both of them at the end of the season, my chances of winning that league are that much more. Whereas if you're trying to hobble to the finish with Alexander Madison because Dalvin Cook went down, week 8 or something like that, blowing out another ACL, it's like how optimistic can you be to win when your top back is gone?
I think it really matters with the quality of the backup there, but. Also, I did circle back around. A important thing I think in this is to consider the pass catching backs later in the drafts. I circle back to take Tariq Cohen. I like his role in the Chicago offense. He almost functions like a slot wide receiver as a guy out of the backfield, and I have no faith in David Montgomery. So I think that getting Tariq Cohen late in drafts, he's a great value. Frankie, I see that you just locked in Justin Jackson. Why? So let me rephrase. Why him over Joshua Kelly when they've shown that they don't have a ton of faith in Justin Jackson?
I honestly don't really have an answer to that.
Okay.
I was kind of just scrolling the list and kind of stressed for time, which, does happen occasionally.
Yeah, that's part of basketball.
It's also one of the big downsides of Yahoo is they do have a 30-second timer.
But yeah, that's pretty much why.
Okay. I was curious if there was if there was a particular reason for you maybe liked Justin Jackson more than Joshua Kelly, because it seems like Joshua Kelly is the new hammer in that offense, with Eckler maintaining his pass catching and probably 1A role, but just not getting as much work on the ground.
Yeah, I was pretty much between him and Boston Scott, because I like what I saw last year with Scott, and Miles Sanders goes down.
Philly hasn't signed anyone new yet either. We know they don't. We know that Doug Peterson doesn't like to use just one running back.
I don't think Philly can use just one running back. They get injured every year.
Miles Sanders has the talent, but there's a reason that he wasn't being drafted like Zeke or Saquon.
Like I said, I like Miles Sanders. I think when you look back when it was Boston Scott and him, they showed that he can produce at elite levels even with Boston Scott there. The big worry for me, which is now gone, is Carlos Hyde. Carlos Hyde they were considering signing him, and so was Seattle, and I was just praying that Seattle would do it, and they did. They just recently signed him. So now that just, for as much as our listeners have seen how much we loathe that Seattle backfield, it's got that much worse with Carlos Hyde there, because that shows they have no faith in their running back core and they need depth.
Carlos Hyde's actually someone that I'm considering now in drafts. I see a lot of potential value in Carlos Hyde because he's not good, but he's consistent. He's someone who, because signing Carlos Hyde to me means Rashad Penny is not going to be there for the start of the year. Who knows when he is going to be there? The big thing that I like about that is now you have a guy in that backfield who can produce, not well, but he can produce well enough, especially if he's being given the carries. And all he needs is Chris Carson to fumble 2 or 3 times, which he has shown he is very capable of doing, sometimes in the same game. All you need is that situation to arise, and you can end up with a starting back. So I'm going to take Derek Carr here. Not much thought to it other than I think he's a high upside guy this late in the draft at quarterback. He's not going to be great. I'm not going to go pimping him in fantasy as far as redraft leagues are concerned, but in best ball, I think you can count on Carr to have some good weeks, and you're just hoping those good weeks land on weeks where your other quarterbacks have bad weeks. And then I'm actually going to take the guy that I was just talking about. I'm going to lock in Carlos Hyde because he's someone who very easily could win that Seattle job, and if he does, that's a team who loves to run the ball. Carlos Hyde's going to perform for you. You can expect basically. I think running back 2 numbers is fair to expect out of him if he gets the Seattle job, right?
Yeah, that you have to like whoever takes the Seattle job because they feed that back.
I would say Pete Carroll does love to run the ball.
They're the opposite.
He
of
does.
The Eagles.
He's loyal to whoever performs for him too. So.
And with this pick, I'm going to pick somebody who I originally said was a trap pick, but
let's see who it is. Rashad Perriman, huh?
liking him more and more. You saw flashes at the end of the year, which, I mean, touchdowns are fluky. But I think that, like, you play for those games in best ball. You're playing for that ceiling game.
I just don't like how clogged that backfield is. Brashad Perriman is probably someone that I'm not even considering him in fantasy. He's the third, actually, counting Le'Veon Bell,
Well, he's a
counting
wide receiver.
Le'Veon Bell and Chris Herndon, Brashad Perriman's the fifth option in that offense for me, behind Jamison Crowder, Denzel Mims, Le'Veon Bell, and Chris Herndon, not in that specific order. But
Yeah. I think
I don't see a lot of value with him.
Yeah, in these last 3 rounds, something I was thinking of is usually ADP kind of guides your picking strategy in those first few rounds. I think once you get to those last 3 picks, throw it completely out the window. Just go find somebody you like that has some form of upside. Your speedster wide receivers, the quarterback who you think could come out of nowhere, and like I said, we see them all the time. Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes. Like I said, there was a lot of love for those guys. There was a lot of upside, and people were drafting them like that. But there was a reason why they were going in your 10th, 11th round in your draft.
Absolutely.
So for those guys, I will go ahead and try and grab one of them. And I like Sam Darnold. There's a reason why he was such a high pick in the real NFL draft, and I think that the Jets are set to at least take a step forward. And hey, maybe I get something out of him and can get a couple of good games. And then it's a low pick with just maybe some high upside.
Sure, I buy that. I hate that. A guy that I really wanted on my team, I was hoping he was going to follow me at 179. Blake Jarwin just went off the board. I was hoping to get him as a 1B to my Darren Waller, and it's that kills me a little bit that he went off the board there. Now I'm going to have to look at someone like Eric Ebron or OJ Howard, who I just don't have as much faith in. Mm-hmm. I mean, I still like them. They're fine dart throws, but Blake Jarwin, someone who I was looking at. Oh, and there goes Eric Ebron. Okay. OJ Howard, please follow me. Jarwin's someone who I really like late in drafts. If you're someone who waits on tight end, I think Jarwin is in a position to take a huge step forward this year. The Cowboys like to use the tight end, especially in the red zone, and that's really what you're looking for with the tight end. He's not going to be a volume guy. He's got too many guys ahead of him, but he's someone who could easily catch 5, 6, 7 touchdowns if the Cowboys end up in the red zone and the balls just fall his way. I mean, look at what Witten did last year. Witten is, I believe, 200 years older than Blake Jarwin.
About.
So if Witten can do it, I think Jarwin can at least match his performance in that insane offense. So I am going to take OJ Howard here.
Yep.
I like that he is in a Brady offense. Brady likes his tight ends. OJ Howard's obviously an insane talent. He's got all the physical tools you want in a tight end. And last season left a really sour taste in people's mouths. So you can get him for dirt cheap, and if he pays off big.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the turnaround here, I am going to take a defense. I actually really like that Minnesota is still on the board somehow. So I'm going to lock in Minnesota as my backup defense.
That was my next pick.
I'm going to pair Minnesota with Pittsburgh, and I feel very comfortable with my defensive position at this point going into the season.
I was looking at that one, and because I had just grabbed the Bears, I was surprised they were there, so I made a late swap over and went for the Bears, just because, I mean, they're going to get sacks. Like I said, their offense is not going to help them out at all, but I'm good with them as one of my 2 defenses. And then the other one, I'm going to take a shot at just who I think could have some upside.
Frankie, who are you thinking here? We're only down to 2 picks left. We're in round 19 out of 20.
Well, seeing as I was going to go with defense there,
Yeah.
and everybody decided
defense
in the last round.
Kind of threw a wrench in those plays. Well, I mean, Los Angeles is still on the board.
That's home grabbing.
I mean, and they're honestly, I've done probably 10 best ball drafts this year. This is the first time that I've seen defenses fall this far.
Well, yeah, usually they get sniped pretty quick.
Yeah, usually a lot of the good defenses go in the round that I took Pittsburgh, where a lot of them fly off the board early, and then in these last 2 rounds, you are picking up that secondary defense that's like Jacksonville or Green Bay or Indianapolis or one of those good but clearly not elite or even second tier defenses. The defenses that they're going to have good weeks against bad teams. They can abuse the bad teams, but they're also going to have bad weeks.
Oh yeah.
Let's circle back around to Frankie here, because I feel like we haven't been getting a lot of vocalization out of him so far. Another Eagles player. I know you're not an Eagles fan, but you have a particular affinity for them. Alshon Jeffrey at 188. What are your thoughts on him?
Mm-hmm. How'd you like that pick from me?
I mean, there's a reason he was at 188, and I noticed he was sitting at the top of the board for a while.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, there's a reason he's up there. I mean, if he can stay healthy, then and he can actually get the volume, then it's it's definitely a tremendous value there. But
honestly, I almost took him where I took Deshaun Jackson. I view them very similarly, except I think Alshon Jeffrey is more likely to play more games, but he has a lower ceiling, whereas Deshaun Jackson could give you like 3 amazing games and then disappear forever.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a reason he was up there for this long?
I don't think people trust him.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that just
He's
leaves it
never
there.
stayed healthy.
He's not a guy that's fun to own. I think that's the way I feel about him. You don't feel good when he's on your squad because it's like he's gonna do good but not that great. So you're just gonna avoid him, and that's why I usually almost avoid him in every single one of my redrafts. But that late in a best ball, I'll take a dart throw.
Well, and I think that the best ball is the key word there. He's not someone who I'm really interested in redraft because of his injury concerns and the fact that you have to use a roster spot for him. You never really know what you're getting at it. Like, he's going to be great if he's on the field. Any snap that he plays, and obviously this is true for any player in the NFL, but it feels just so much more true for Alshon. Any snap that he plays could be his last snap of the season. And you never want to be the guy that has him on your team and he just disappears 2 snaps into a game. He gets a catch, he lands wrong, he's gone, and then you wasted a mid-round draft pick on him. He is someone who I do not have much interest at all in.
Yeah, he's just, it's kind of getting to that point where he's just too injury prone to trust, and that's what you hate about it, is because you're not sure how long you're going to have him. So the other part of it is I don't have to think, oh, is this going to be his game where he gets those, he kind of comes back to form and is the Alshon Jeffrey that we knew and loved when he was up, supplanting Brandon Marshall, and when he was back with the Bears. But with best ball, I don't have to worry about that. I just throw him on my squad, and when he has those up weeks,
and that's why I think drafting for depth is important in best ball. Because you want to put yourself in a position where late in drafts, you can take players like Deshaun Jackson or Alshon Jeffrey. It's hilarious they're on the same team. But you want to put yourself in a position in best ball where you can take those late round players who have the really good upside, but they have these like insane, obvious drawbacks that you don't want to expose yourself to in redraft. Because it doesn't matter as much in best ball. If you draft for depth, you don't have to worry about it as much. They're just there to fill in some gaps where you have players on buys, or you have a down week out of Galladay or something.
Right. I just feel as kind of as we're wrapping up our draft now, and we're able to kind of look back at our teams. I think a big thing to look back at is that whole going heavy running back strategy. I think that's going to carry all the way through. You will probably see some wide receivers climb a little bit, but people are going to try and grab those running backs early because there is just such a fall from those top tier clear RB1s.
So where do you cut it off? Where are you looking at it and you're like, you know what? The running back position is no longer a position where I am interested in grabbing guys regardless of who they are. For me, it's David Johnson.
I think it's like a hiccup because there's a group of guys where the wide receiver quality kind of jumps, and I want to get in on those guys.
And that's like the third round,
that
right?
Third round is where you get guys
where you have like the Thielens and the Galladays.
Yeah, Thielens, Galladay, Juju, DJ Moore, those kind of guys who I think have easy wide receiver 1 value, especially with upside for being in the top 5 for a couple of them. Whereas the running backs you'd be taking are, I don't think, Aaron Jones, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, I don't think any of them have the ceiling to be an RB 1, 2, or 3. So I'll take the wide receiver there over them. And then usually I'm right back on to running backs and trying to grab those high upside guys or guys who are getting slept on, like Le'Veon Bell, Leonard Fournette, those kinds of guys who I think are more of a value.
Frank, what about you? Where's the cutoff for you?
I'm kind of in the same boat as Vitaly. I think that's kind of like that middle pack of wide receivers. Although I will say this year is kind of weird because there were a lot of wide receivers that were rookies that you might want to take, like maybe like a Jerry Jeudy or a CeeDee Lamb. Like obviously not that early, but like it kind of bumps everybody up or down a little bit.
You don't have to worry about them as much though. I mean, we don't know where they're going to go in redraft, obviously, because we're still months out. But in best ball, Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb both come in much late. Like they come in after you're done drafting these top running backs. I'm saying for the running back position, where do you cut it off? Where you are no longer just focusing on filling out your running back core with good running backs. What's like the bottom of the barrel guy, or bottom of the barrel round if you don't have a cutoff guy? What round do you typically say, okay, if I don't have my running back position filled at this point, I'm kind of screwed?
Oh, I go with first 3 rounds running back, unless we get into a situation that happened in this draft where there was nobody really in that range that I couldn't wait on.
Right. So what's your cutoff round? When are you officially worried about your running back position if you don't have the position filled already?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm worried about it after round 1. I mean, if I'm starting with running back, I'm going running back 1, 2, and then if there's somebody there that I want in that range that I don't have to reach for, 3.
So for me, I'm worried. For me, it's the 5th round. If I don't have 3 good running backs or good to great running backs by the end of the 5th round, I'm worried, because 5th round is when you're seeing the David Johnsons and Le'Veon Bells and even the Dave Montgomerys, who I'm not high on at all. But that's when you're seeing all of them just officially not be on the board anymore. None of them make it past that round.
Yeah.
And after that point, the running back position gets scary. Like, ooh, you don't want to be holding onto one of them as your flex, or God forbid, your running back 2.
Yeah. Like I said, one of my first ones I did, I tried to look at it and going purely on the value. And I started with Ezekiel Elliott. It was that perk where I had pick 3. I took Zeke, rolled back around. I had DeAndre Hopkins looking at me in the face, and it's weird to see him that late in the 2nd round.
It is.
And so I was like, you know what? I'll take a guy who's got, he's got that talent. I'll take him right there. Boom. Locked him in, went right back around, and I'm looking at, Julio Jones went the pick before mine. I'm looking at these guys. I'm like, how are these guys slipping so far?
It's because they had bad seasons last year, so people are scared of them. They're worried that the age is getting to these guys.
Exactly. But then
although DeAndre isn't that old.
Yeah, they said there's reason. Like I said, there's reason why they've kind of stepped back, and the running back has kind of claimed the 1st round again. But when I then flipped over and looked at the running back, it's because they've been scooped out of every value. Whereas I feel like when you get to redraft, you're going to see a lot more of a balance. Some people are going to try the wide receiver strategy. Some people are going to go running back. But I think it's going to be a lot more balanced out as opposed to best ball, where people want to have those 2 anchor running backs that they can rely on.
Well, and a lot of that too is because in redraft you don't have to worry about, essentially like leaving point. I mean, you do more about leaving points on your bench, but there's more value to taking those top tier wide receivers because they are almost guaranteed points. Whereas in best ball, you have guaranteed points every week, because unless you draft really, really, really poorly or you get really unlucky, you're drafting probably 5-6 wide receivers. Chances are at least 3 of them are going to have good weeks. So there's less value taking those early wide receivers, because the difference in points they're going to give you over, unless they go off, which they can, but like the difference in points they're going to give you over those lower, cheaper guys isn't as big as the difference in points that a Nick Chubb or a Kenyon Drake or even a Miles Sanders is going to give you over someone like Sony Michel. Like, that's a huge drop off there potentially. You're talking like 100 yards and a touchdown to like maybe 50 something yards and no touchdowns.
Right, and I think it goes back to those high ceiling guys that we talked about, and I think that's what motivates people to fade wide receiver in the beginning, is because you can take a guy who I was eyeballing, but I kind of let him slip, like Mecole Hardman. Deshaun Jackson. You can get these guys who will catch 2 or 3 passes a game, but they're always a threat to take it to the house.
Oh, yeah, you can get the guys who they're a one play, 75 yards and a touchdown, but that's a week right there.
Straight line, DK Metcalf, but he's a little more skilled, and I think he can do more than just run a straight line.
I do love DK this year. I think that was a great pick by you.
So those kinds of guys, you can get those in the mid to late rounds, and if you get one of those guys who breaks off a 70-yard touchdown, 7 points, 6 points right there, you're already in the teens, and that guy needs to catch maybe a couple more balls to give you a solid week. Running backs in those later rounds, running backs don't pop off like that unless they're the elite guys who are getting 20 carries a game.
Well, and I think that is something that matters too. I mean, maybe you guys disagree with me, but in the late rounds, we talked about it mid-draft, Marlon Mack's really the only guy you're getting after round 5 where you feel any sort of confident about his potential volume. And even him, he presents a lot of risk.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought about taking Hines late because I think he's still going to be a part of that offense. Regrettably saying that, I thought it was going to kind of be, just a 2-back field. But I guess word came out the other day that they still plan on using Hines. Maybe.
Yeah, they see him as someone who can probably get 10+ catches.
That's what he's been doing his whole career. Yeah, so it's not really crazy news. It's more of just like, you have these 2 guys, but
I think it's more crazy news based on the fact that they just drafted Jonathan Taylor and they already had Marlon Mack. So now they have apparently 3 good running backs that they're trying to cycle into the system, and maybe they're going to use Hines out of the slot. I don't know.
Yeah, he's like a new Tariq Cohen, but. Just to pump my own tires a little bit, I just jumped over. So that's the whole thing.
You should pump. If you love a pick you got in the draft, pump your tires.
This is Yahoo pumping my tires for me. Because after you draft, you can look over your team, where people went. But there's a handy little thing called standings, and they take your whole team, average all their projected stats together, and they just give you they're never that accurate, but just say who's coming in first, who's coming in second. So I took a look through. It was hard to find me. It was up towards the top. I had to look up high. So number 1 with 3,798 points is your boy. And I was like, well, Frankie had to be 2. He had so many good picks. No, he wasn't 2.
Ooh,
he wasn't 3 either. He was 10. 3,381 points. Like I said, these rankings don't mean crap right now. It's
a big thing that Yahoo is factoring in here that you have to consider, and why you shouldn't consider these standings at all, really. They seem to way overvalue the quarterback position, so people who took multiple high-value quarterbacks are getting a boost, whereas Frankie is projected to get 561 quarterback points. Obviously, that's not going to happen. It might. Your quarterbacks might just suck. I don't remember who you took, honestly.
Cousins and
Matt Ryan. So he has 2 quarterbacks, so he doesn't have as much coverage as I'm usually safe with.
You get a benefit in best ball in these end of draft rankings from taking 3 quarterbacks. If you don't take 3, it's going to negatively impact your team. Like I took 3, but two of the guys that I took as my backups, one's Derek Carr and one's a rookie. So Yahoo threw some shade at me. But if you sort by wide receivers, I think I am fourth. I'm 4th at wide receivers in projections. I'm 3rd at running back.
Wide receiver, you are 1, 2, 3.
Am I miscounting?
Yeah, you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You are 7th.
Where are you guys seeing this?
In the standings tab. So in the standings tab, like I said, I'm a mid-pack for that. Running back, you are 4th in running back.
The end of draft rankings, especially this early in the year, end of draft rankings mean almost nothing.
Oh yeah, like I said, the same thing. The amount of drafts I've done, and then NFL gives us when we use the NFL app, would give us a grade for your overall draft. The amount of A's and A pluses and times I've been told I was going to go 12-6 or 12-2 a year, and it went nothing close to that. Or like I said, they're nice little things just to brag. They're little bragging rights for after you're done. And like I said, I know my stats are a little padded because I went 4 quarterbacks. So that's why
you went 4 quarterbacks?
4 quarterbacks. Yep.
You did.
I went 4 quarterbacks: Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Jared Goff, and Sam Darnold. So I took 2 of the old guard and 2 of the new.
And for everyone listening, I just want to specify here: we do not endorse going 4 quarterbacks. This
I
man,
do.
This man came in second to last year. Don't follow his example
He was in a bunny suit.
unless you want to be wearing a bunny suit.
Just to
honestly, jokes aside, I do believe 4 quarterbacks is excessive. Specifically just because quarterbacks are, especially in the modern NFL, they are able to turn in these, I don't know, maybe not better, but more consistently better performances.
Mm-hmm.
3 quarterbacks is the max I would ever draft, because anything past that, you're just leaving points in your bench and you're leaving yourself short at other positions. And the other positions is the big one for me. Like, you're always going to leave points in your bench in a best ball, especially if you do your job right. But you don't want to ever leave yourself. Last year was my first year doing best ball, but I did a lot of best ball last year, as you guys know. And some of my early best ball drafts where I was experimenting with strategies weren't great. Those were not fantastic teams. And I found that I did underdraft at positions oftentimes where, I would think that having 2 or 3 running backs is all I needed. So I would lock in 3 top tier guys and then, a filler guy late in drafts, and all of a sudden one of my top tier guys got hurt. And
That team's dead.
Yeah, that team's dead now. It's gone.
Yeah.
All of a sudden I'm starting Nick Chubb and, a Gumbawule, or whatever his name is, as my starting running backs. And it's like, okay, well, that took a steep dive quick.
Yeah.
You don't want to overdraft those, especially the positions where you're only starting one guy. In the positions where you're only starting one guy, so quarterback, tight end, and defense, you want to at max draft 3, because otherwise you're sacrificing roster depth for that extra guy who isn't really going to factor into your season that much.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it, at least. Like, it's important to have roster depth at the positions where you're most likely going to experience attrition.
Yeah, I can completely see that. For me, because I took 2 older quarterbacks, for me, I also just, like I said, I love the upside of Darnold. I think Jared Goff is going to come back a little bit, but it's just kind of covering my bases. And when you have 4 quarterbacks, like I said, they do score a premium. So I think I'm basically buying in on getting one of the better premiums each week to try and cover myself and keep that high floor that quarterbacks provide up there. So, when Breeze has his 2 touchdown week and everyone else, and then Brady has that pop for 4, and then he comes back. Like I said, it's trying to keep that level up here.
Tomorrow I go running back. I try getting just a wide receiver or a tight end, or like one of those stud tight ends. I think it's just like a good way to see what works. Good way to see. I mean, if you're doing a lot of best ball leagues, it's a good way to see who's available where. And I mean, honestly, it's going to depend on your draft. Like, some people are going to be homers for certain people and take Pat Mahomes in the first round. I mean, it happens. You shouldn't always expect that, because that's few and far between, because a lot of people who are doing this for money are going to be more intelligent. They're going to be a little bit more savvy in terms of fantasy. But, I mean, if I did one tomorrow, I mean, I might do what I said, where I go running back, and then I go stud tight end, and then go back to running back, and then continue my draft as normal.
Yeah.
Vitaly?
Yeah, I'll keep mine short and sweet. Like I said, the only thing I really wish I would have tweaked is probably at the end just trying to grab another tight end. I kind of floated away from that as I got, like you said, with the Alshon Jeffrey pick. There was just some guys that were just such values that I couldn't.
There also wasn't a lot. The tight ends went faster than they usually do.
Yeah, that's like I said. That's kind of keeping with the flow of it. I probably should have. There was a couple picks I could have pivoted and grabbed that 3rd tight end, but at the end of the day, I'm okay with what I have. But like I said, just like what Frank said, it's experimenting, trying different things, and spreading yourself out in a few different. Trying to avoid going for the same running back if you find yourself in the top 5 picks all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe one draft, even if you keep getting the first pick overall, you're going to take CMC a lot. Try taking Saquon. Try taking Zeke. Because when you have that pick, you don't have the luxury of a regular league where maybe you can trade down and try and get the guy you really want and get some collateral with it. Sometimes you just got to reach a little bit and just take the guy you want. But
I agree. That's actually something I want to talk about as part of my closing thoughts. Is it matters less if you're just in this for one or two best ball drafts, and you don't really plan on doing a lot of these. But if you're doing a lot of best ball, you want to get exposure to different players. And the reason for that is because look at someone like Saquon last year, where he was supposed to be a rock-solid running back, and he missed most of the year. You don't want to just expose yourself to one player in best ball if you're doing a lot of best ball, because if the worst happens and that player goes down, all of a sudden you lost every single league. Every single one. It's just out the window.
Mm-hmm.
You want to farm that exposure. You want to get a bunch of different options for you, so that way, if something bad does happen at running back or at wide receiver or at any position, you aren't immediately crippled by it. As for my personal draft, things that I would change, really the big thing for me is I'm fine with my running back depth. I went a little heavy on wide receiver this time. I only got 2 tight ends. I like my tight ends. Darren Waller and O.J. Howard's a good base. I would have liked to get one more just to really lock that position down. Overall, though, I'm pretty happy with my draft. Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow, Derek Carr, very solid wide receiver core.
Right. So one thing I thought of as we were going through it, if you say that you're someone casual, like let me so to play the devil's advocate here, if you're coming to this and you're like, all right, how can I make some money on best ball? You're not trying to make 2 big bucks, and you're sitting here saying, diversify your portfolio. Don't go too hard into too many people because you could lose you could lose all your teams if one big guy goes down. But if I diversify too much, then half my teams are going to win, half my teams.
You don't want to diversify too much.
Right.
So I probably did 200 best ball drafts last year. And I still had my top owned player last year at running back was Aaron Jones. I had 39% Aaron Jones. And then I had 35% Nick Chubb. I had a very good season last year with best ball because I hyper-focused running backs that I liked. And while I didn't overdraft them, it would have actually helped me if I did overdraft them because the picks panned out last year. While I didn't overdraft them, I still had good success across the board with my best ball drafts because I mostly drafted good running backs in the early rounds. But I think correctly identifying the players that you want to target and overweighting those players a little bit, you got to treat it a little bit like DraftKings, where if you're multi-entering, you're making 150 lineups, you're going to have players that you want to have a higher ownership stake of, but you don't 100% own them. It's the same mindset with best ball if you're doing a lot of best ball drafts. No matter how much you like a player, you never want 100% ownership unless they are very cheap. I'm talking like post round 10, like if you can get them, like a Jonnu Smith or like an Anthony McFarland, where you can get him with your last pick every time and he could win the job in Pittsburgh.
Right.
Okay. Like, guys like that, fine. Overdraft them all the way up to 100%. But your early round guys, spread that ownership around. Make sure that you aren't overexposing yourself to a player. All right. I think that'll do it for closing thoughts. Let's do a beer check here, guys. Where are you guys at?
Well, you definitely haven't taken a sip of that beer.
I haven't. This is beer 3 in my glass here.
I'm down to about here on mine.
Is that beer 3?
That is beer 3.
Frankie, I think you win closing thoughts for the day then. Why don't you give us up to 5 minutes of whatever the hell you want to talk about.
But just before, not to cut you off here, Frankie, but we did skip a pivotal part here in showing off our beer. We didn't give us because of the condensed. Like I said, I'm not the fancy beer one, as we saw, even though we were.
They're very nice cans.
Very nice cans, and I will have to give.
The camera's over here today.
Yeah, I want to look at it. I just want to say that Frankie. Normally, I hate what you picked, but this one was a solid one. I would drink this again. You can give that a 1 drink out of 2.
It is $8 a 4-pack.
And for anyone, I don't know if they sell this nationwide or not, but for anyone who lives in the Boston area who's wondering what we're drinking, we are drinking Nightlight, which is made by Night Shift Brewery. They are not a sponsor. We would love it if they were. I would describe it as a better Bud Light. Higher alcohol content, higher quality.
Well, there goes our Bud sponsorship.
Bud Light knows what they are. But, Frankie, closing thoughts.
Honestly, I don't really have much to rant about, but I would like to say that, personally, I hate the fantasy curse that I've kind of had ever since that I've been playing fantasy football. Hey, do you remember Pat Mahomes, how, he had that stud season, 5,050? Or how he got injured last year? Well, albeit for 2 games. It still counts to my curse. I think you were there, or maybe both of you were there, when RG3 AJ Green, Jimmy Graham all went down
Yes.
within a 5-minute span.
You've been in the league with us for all of them.
It's well, I meant in the room, and you could see the distraughtness in my face.
Yes.
Or when Jacoby Jones got beat by a stripper.
Why don't you explain to our audience who haven't been in the league with you for a decade what your fantasy curse is?
So my fantasy curse basically is, I'm gonna look into the camera for this. Every player I draft is doomed. It's kind of like, you know, if you met a witch woman who like just threw a curse on you.
Kicked too many gypsies?
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much that.
You're a walking Madden curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the embodiment of the Madden curse. And I'm kind of getting just sick of it now. I wish there was just 1 year where I could have a year where I draft all these players, they stay healthy, and then the next year they don't die or they don't get injured.
Yeah.
But I mean that's pretty much all I have to say. It's like I'm sick of this curse. I don't know who I wronged in life, but if I could just have this curse lifted off of me, I don't know if there are any spiritual people watching this video, but if you could just leave a comment, let me know how to remove curses.
We'll get
So
you
you're
a-
saying thoughts and prayers for Frankie's
Yeah,
curse.
so we're just going to get you a big old wheel full of just any kind of thing that has a curse-breaking part of its religion, and we're just going to go through, spin the wheel, rub you in some kind of dust, and hope it goes away.
Spin the wheel of curses.
Why haven't we done this years ago is why
All right.
what I'm asking.
Because it's too fun.
Well, with that, we will close out today's video. If you like what you saw and you want to support the channel, hit that notifications bell, subscribe. We appreciate it. It helps it helps us grow the channel.
Yeah.
Follow us on social media so you can get our inside thoughts and find out when more content's posting. And we will see you all next Monday.
See you guys later.
Okay, Vitaly, go kill the fucking spider on that fan.